in my opinion, sports is what unifies Chautauqua County. We've got 18 school districts in this county, which is probably too many. But why do we have so many? It might go back to sports. Every community wants to have their high school sports teams. And that's why I think sports is the unifier in Chautauqua County. So we have a museum, a 6,000 square foot museum on 3rd Street in Jamestown. We're open from noon to 3, Monday through Friday, free of charge. I encourage you to take a trip over to Jamestown someday, stop in and see us. We're right across the street from the Lucy Desi Museum. There's a coffee shop right there. You can have a cup of coffee. There's plenty of restaurants right on 3rd Street to enjoy a meal. And you can stop up and see the Robert H. Jackson Center, another free museum in Jamestown. Okay, so enough about the Sports Hall of Fame. Why Vincent Powers is the subject of my speech tonight. Vincent Powers enjoyed a fascinating, prosperous, and most unconventional career in the sport of horse racing, both flat track and steeplechase. Keep that in mind. Vincent Powers was born in Westfield in 1891. He was the son of Casper and Nellie Seitz Powers. Seitz, S-E-I-Z. His sister Marguerite was born 2 years later, 1893. His father, Casper, was listed in the New York State Census of 1892 as being a barber. And they lived on Chestnut Street in Westfield. Later censuses listed Casper as a farmer, which I guess you probably figured that out. Vincent's mother died not long after his sister was born, and his father remarried in 1898. There were no additional children from the second marriage. So it's just Vincent and his sister Marguerite. The 1900 U.S. Census reveals that Vincent, who was then 9 years old, was not living with his father or his stepmother. He was living with his maternal grandparents and an aunt and an uncle, but in the village of Westfield. Vincent spent his early years in Westfield as well as in Panama. He had relatives on the Powers side of the family that lived in Panama, and he spent time there. So you can see he was kind of here with Mom's family, here with Dad's family, but he wasn't really living with his own father. He left home when he was in his early teens to work as an exercise boy. What does an exercise boy do?
Breed horses. Clean, groom.
All of that, yes. So he worked as an exercise boy at the Fort Erie, Canada racetrack. And he received early riding instruction from a noted trainer by the name of John Nixon. Greg Nixon is a real historical name in Westfield. And I'm wondering if that John Nixon is somehow related to the Westfield Nixons and he took young Vincent Powers to Canada. Just me wondering. So Powers began his riding career the hard way, riding on the half-mile fairground tracks that were everywhere. It was called the leaky roof circuit because, well, you know why. It makes sense. You're in the fairground, it's a leaky roof. So, yeah. The work was hard. The pay was meager. But the experience that Vincent got on the fairground circuit was invaluable. Vincent was just 15 years old when he won his first race. It was a $500 race for 2-year-olds at Churchill Downs in Louisville, Kentucky. It was in 1907. May of 1907. He was only 15 years old when he won his first race. So a year later, now we're up to 1908, Vincent is starting to make big progress. In 1908, he rode 1,260 races. 1,260 races. He won 324 of them, was second 204 other times, and third 185 other times. At a time when youngsters of today are thinking about driving a car for the first time or going to the junior prom, Vincent was the leading jockey in all of America. He won more races than any other jockey in all of America in 1908. And that was the year he went from 16 to 17 years old. So when the history of the Kentucky Derby is mentioned, it's not surprising that many people will reflect upon the 17-year-old young man from Westfield who guided Wintergreen down the home stretch. To victory in the 35th Derby in 1909. On the screen you see Vincent on Wintergreen.
So I have a question. Is that Wintergreen? Did he use the same horse when he won all these?
No. A jockey picks up whatever rides he can get. As you get good, as he was, trainers will seek out the good jockeys to ride their horses.
All right.
So, no, he only rode on Wintergreen one time.
Okay.
Wintergreen was bred in Ohio by a man named Jerome Respis. He was a multi-millionaire owner of a brewing company near Cincinnati. Wintergreen had won 5 races and 10 starts as a 2-year-old and finished 3rd in 1 stakes race. So now we're up to 1909. Wintergreen's now a 3-year-old because that's what races in the derbies and so on. They're 3-year-olds. So Wintergreen prepared for the Kentucky Derby by racing 1 race at the antiquated Association course in Lexington, Kentucky. He finished 2nd in his preparation race. But that turned out to be a key preparation, not only for Wintergreen, but for 2 other horses. The first 3 finishers in the Kentucky Derby that year all had raced in this preparatory race at Lexington. So Wintergreen, with Vincent aboard, left from the 6th post position in a 10-horse field. He was bumped early, but recovered. He took an early lead and held sway throughout the race. He won by 4 lengths in a time of 2:08. The winner's purse in 1909 was $4,850. For comparison purposes, Golden Temple won $3.1 million for the same mile and a quarter. Now, of course, that's not a true comparison. I looked up what would $4,850 in 1909 be worth today. It's about $150,000. So the purses have escalated rapidly over the years. In all, Wintergreen raced 6 seasons. And while he was stakes placed several times, the Kentucky Derby was his only stakes win. He remains to this day the only Kentucky Derby winner to have been bred in the state of Ohio. Most of them come from Kentucky, California. Wintergreen was a stallion when he won the Derby in 1909, but was later gelded. He died in a barn fire in 1914. Powers' ride on Wintergreen was regarded as one of his easiest victories of his career, and it attracted even more attention from leading horsemen in America. One of them was a noted trainer by the name of Sam Hildreth. Powers rode for Sam Hildreth on a horse named Fitzherbert, very famous horse, winning several major stake races. Included were the Advanced Stakes and the Lawrence Realization Stakes, both contested at the Sheepshead Bay Racetrack in Brooklyn. Powers always considered Fitzherbert the most outstanding horse that he had ever ridden. So we're in 1909 still. Vincent won the Kentucky Derby. Remember, he had just come off a year in which he was the leading jockey in all of America. Well, he did it again in 1909. He was the top jockey in all of America with 173 wins, 121 seconds, and 114 thirds, riding in 704 races. The following year, 1910, now we're up to 1910, Vincent Powers returned to the Kentucky Derby as the defending champion jockey. And he rode a horse named Joe Morris and finished second. So here's this young kid, now he's 18, he's an old man now I guess. So this kid from Westfield, leading jockey in America 2 years in a row, wins the Kentucky Derby, finishes second in the Kentucky Derby. People are paying attention to this young man. But horse racing fell out of favor in 1910 as betting scandals led to the end of legal gambling. Many states, including New York, passed laws prohibiting horse racing because of the gambling. The only legal betting that could happen in 1910 was in just 3 states. So here's Vincent at the top of his game, best jockey in America 2 years in a row, Kentucky Derby winner, Kentucky Derby second place. Now he's got no place to race. As they say, he's all dressed up with no place to go. Well, Powers' name recognition was strong not only in America, but in Europe. in 1911, he signed a contract to ride for a family in Europe for a guaranteed salary of $10,000. Huge money in 1911. If you remember, he won the Kentucky Derby and only got $4,800. So now he's got a guaranteed $10,000 contract to ride in Germany, in Europe, I should say. So he went to Europe. He raced primarily in Germany and France and continued to have great success riding on the continent. He also met and married a German girl, Hedwig. Apparently Hedwig was a pretty good cook because Vincent started having trouble making weight. So I'm also married to a German girl and I have trouble making weight as well. So as a result of him having trouble making weight, by the way, do you know how much a jockey has to carry when he races in like the Kentucky Derby? If it's a stallion, the jockey has to be 126 pounds. And if he doesn't weigh enough, they add weights to him. But if he's riding a filly, he only has to weigh 121 pounds. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, but anyway, Vincent couldn't make weight, as they say. So he transitioned to the horse racing sport of steeplechase. Steeplechase is over the hill, through the woods to grandmother's house we go, you know, that. And that was a very popular sport in Europe at the time. And he had immediate success riding steeplechase horses. Now we're moving ahead to 1914. Something that's happening in Europe in 1914. It's World War I, right, Roy?
Right.
Okay, so Vincent's thinking, this isn't a good place to be here. There's not going to be a whole lot of riding going on during the war. So he and his wife came back to America. Thoroughbred racing had resumed in America in 1914, but it was still having trouble finding its footing. People were still leery about thoroughbred racing. But steeplechase was very popular in America at that time as well. Now here comes Vincent, who had steeplechase experience in Europe, comes back to the United States, and he gets hired. He gets hired to ride steeplechase. He gets hired by a very famous owner named Payne Hay Whitney. The Whitneys are big-time horse racing people. They ran a stable called Green Tree Stables, and they hired Vincent to ride their steeplechase horses. In 1917 now, Vincent became the leading steeplechase rider in all of America. He had 15 victories, 9 seconds, and 9 thirds in 39 races. As such, Vincent Powers is the only jockey in history to be the leading flat track jockey at one time, and then subsequently to be the leading steeplechase jockey. This guy's good. So that's what Vincent looked like 1908, 1909, when he was the leading jockey in America. This is Vincent a little later in his life. Roy, Greg, we know something about this guy. Okay. The head trainer at Green Tree Stables was a guy named Jimmy Owens. And he trained those steeplechase horses that Vincent rode with great success. But Jimmy Owens died in 1922, and Vincent took over as the head trainer at Green Tree. So he's not the jockey anymore, he's the head trainer. Now he's 1922, he's, how old is he now? 30. He's 30-some years old. So it's probably his jockey days are over, but he becomes the head trainer at the very famous Green Tree Stables. So now we've moved up to 1927. And in 1927, Vincent Powers became the leading steeplechase trainer in all of America. He had 19 winners that year, and his horses won $104,000.
Wow, that's a lot of money.
Huge money. So think what this guy has done. Leading flat track jockey in America, leading steeplechase jockey in America. Now he's the leading steeplechase trainer in America.
Back to Europe.
No. He stayed here. He stayed here. The most famous steeplechase horse that Vincent ever trained was a horse named Jolly Roger. And Jolly Roger won all by himself $100,000 in his racing career. Vincent retired from training in 1946, and he and Heitvik made their homes in Queen Village, New York, near New York City. He died at the age of 75 in 1966. Now we're moving ahead to maybe about the year 2014 or so. My friend Greg Peterson finds this newspaper article that talks about Vincent Powers. The Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame had never heard of Vincent Powers. I mean, his stuff was from the long time ago. We never heard of this guy. Greg finds this article. It tells about Vincent Powers. He gives it to us. Well, we're all over it now. And we researched the heck out of Vincent. And we decide that he's worthy of induction into the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame. Why wouldn't he be? So we inducted him into our Hall of Fame in February of 2015. A few weeks later, I received a call from the National Museum of Horse Racing and Hall of Fame in Saratoga Springs, New York. They informed me that they were going to induct Vincent into their Hall of Fame. Now, we're taking all the credit that they probably read somewhere that we put this guy in, and now they want to just copy us. Well, that's our story, and we're sticking to it anyway. Whether it happened that way or not, I don't know. But ironically, the same year that we induct him, they're going to induct him. Well, they called me. They wanted contact information for Vincent's family so that they could go and receive the induction in Saratoga. I told them that Vincent and his wife had no children. His sister and her husband had no children. It kind of stopped. When we inducted Vincent into our Hall of Fame, we weren't able to locate any Powers relations. So there was no one accepting for him. So when I was telling the folks at Saratoga that we don't know any relatives of Vincent Powers. And they go, well, that's okay, you can come and accept for him. Me? So, I did. Now, I think the Sports Hall of Fame here, the Chautauqua Sports Hall of Fame, runs a pretty classy induction ceremony. Roy's been to it, Greg's been to it. I think we do a pretty classy induction ceremony. Well, I gotta tell you, we don't hold a candle to what the National Horse Racing Hall of Fame is doing in Saratoga Springs. Fancy, fancy cocktail party, elegant dinner, people dressed in their finest clothing with their derby hats and all of that stuff. I'm sitting with my wife at a table with some other people. They were introduced to me as Vanderbilts and Whitneys. These people are horse racing royalty, the Vanderbilts and the Whitneys. And this Yahoo from Jamestown, New York is sitting with these people. Well, they're talking among themselves about the horses that they had brought to Saratoga for the meet that was going on at the same time as this induction. Big horse meet at Saratoga. So they're talking about, oh yeah, well, I brought this horse. Finally, one of them leans over and engages my wife and I in a conversation. They go, well, what horses did you bring to the meet this year? I said, the last horse I was on was at the merry-go-round at Midway Park. So they figured out what they were dealing with right away. In 2018, the Sports Hall of Fame in Chautauqua County partnered with the village of Westfield to write a grant from the William Pomeroy Foundation to erect this sign. You've seen these signs everywhere. They all come from the Pomeroy Foundation. And we successfully were able to secure this grant. We had this sign commissioned, and that sign is in the park in the middle of Westfield. You know, the County Historical Museum is there, right on the corner of Route 20 and Portage Hill Road, whatever. That's where that sign is, and we had a wonderful dedication ceremony, and most of Westfield showed up to learn about someone they've never heard of. So, Vincent Powers' life was full, and it included riding and training some of the finest horses in America on the flat tracks and through the steeplechase. And all of that from a boy from Chautauqua County. Isn't that amazing when you think about it? Well, that concludes my presentation on Vincent Powers.